My name's Aiden, I'm 26, and I've always been the quiet one in my family. Not in a shy or introverted kind of way, more like the one who doesn't cause trouble, doesn't argue, and just keeps the peace. I'm the one who listens during family dinners while everyone else talks over each other. The one who shows up on time, pays my share, remembers birthdays, and sends the thank you cards no one reads. My sister, Kelsey, is the opposite. 2 years older, loud, charming, dramatic. She could cry on cue and fake an allergy for sympathy. I always thought she was just exhausting. But she was family, and I figured that meant something. Things started unraveling last Christmas. I've been working overtime for months at my IT job, not glamorous, but decent pay, and I used a chunk of my savings to get thoughtful gifts for everyone. Nothing extravagant, just meaningful. For Dad, a sleek vintage-style watch. He used to love watches when I was a kid, always talking about them, but never splurging on himself. For Mom, a heated back massager. She always complained about her back, and I remembered her saying, "One of these days I'll treat myself." For Kelsey, a framed collection of photos from our childhood, high-res prints I scanned and restored myself, each captioned with memories in my handwriting. We had our traditional dinner, turkey and cranberry everything, followed by the gift exchange. Kelsey opened hers first. She barely looked at the photos. Just gave me a quick, "Oh, thanks," and set the frame aside like it was a paperweight. Mom unwrapped the massager and smiled, saying it looked cheap but sweet. Then came Dad. He tore off the paper, saw the watch, and said, "This is it." He turned it over in his hand like it might start doing tricks. "Your sister pays for the utilities, the groceries, your mom's salon visits. You think a trinket makes up for that?" I blinked. I honestly didn't know what to say. My sister's fork scraped her plate as she added, "It's okay, Dad. Some people just contribute in other ways." I looked at Mom. Nothing. No defense. Not even a half-hearted "thank you." Just silence. I should have spoken up right then. But instead, I smiled. Just like always. Swallowed it. Because the thing was, my sister didn't pay for the utilities. Her groceries. Or salon visits. I did. 2 years ago, after a family emergency left my parents struggling with late bills and Kelsey bouncing between jobs, I stepped in. Quietly. I set up auto payments from my account to cover everything they needed. The electricity, water, gas, the Wi-Fi. I transferred monthly grocery money directly into my mom's debit card. Kelsey's contribution was forwarding me receipts and requesting reimbursements. I never said no. I never asked for credit. I figured they knew. Or maybe I just hoped they did. So I sat there at the dinner table, listening to them praise Kelsey for holding the family together while I got scolded like a freeloading guest. My ears buzzed. Not with anger, not at first. Just disbelief. Like watching a car crash in slow motion and realizing I was the only one who saw it coming. Then came the note. Kelsey slid it across the table like she was passing a secret in high school. A folded piece of gold-trimmed stationery with Aiden written in big cursive letters. I opened it. "We've agreed it's time for you to move out." No explanation. No signature. Just that. I read it twice. Then again. Kelsey was already digging into dessert. Mom was laughing at something on her phone, and Dad was pouring himself a second glass of wine. I felt this strange stillness wash over me. Not anger. Not hurt. Something colder. Like clarity. I excused myself quietly. No one looked up. I walked to my old bedroom, which had basically become a storage space for random junk, and sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress still creaked like it did when I was 16. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and looked at the autopay list. 8 recurring charges. 2 grocery transfers. 1 shared credit card used for emergencies, currently sitting at $3,200, almost all from my sister's transactions. I could have shut it all down in seconds. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I spent the night in that room, thinking, remembering. Like the time I stayed home from college to help when Mom slipped a disc and Kelsey couldn't get time off. Or the time Dad's car died, and I co-signed the lease on a new one because his credit was too low. Or the time Kelsey blew up at me for not supporting her dream to launch a skincare line, and still asked me for money 2 weeks later. I'd let it slide. Over and over. Maybe that made me complicit. By morning, I had a plan. I went back to my apartment, which I rarely stayed in since I was always helping at home. I made coffee, sat on my couch, opened my laptop. Then, one by one, I did 3 things. I canceled every utility payment in my name. I froze the joint credit card. And I emailed one document to the landlord of my parents' house, a scanned letter from 2 years ago, confirming that the lease had been quietly transferred to my name when Dad's credit was rejected. They'd asked me to co-sign, and I agreed. Only the landlord had ended up putting me down as primary leaseholder. I never mentioned it. I just paid the rent. But now, I wasn't going to. The next morning, I got a text from Kelsey. Why is there an eviction warning taped to the door? I didn't respond. Then another. What's going on? Then from Mom. Call me. Please. Then one from Dad. We need to talk. Urgently. Still, I said nothing. But that was only the beginning. By noon that day, my phone had 22 missed calls. 8 from Mom, 11 from Kelsey, 3 from Dad. They were spiraling, the kind of desperate flurry I'd grown too used to fixing. Normally, I'd be halfway into an apology by now, trying to patch things up, easing their panic. But not this time. Instead, I brewed a second cup of coffee, turned on some classical music, and let the storm unfold. It didn't take long before the messages turned from confusion to full-blown rage. Kelsey, are you insane? You can't just cancel everything. We live here. Dad, fix this now. You're being childish and vindictive. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but your father is furious and we're all scared. Please. And finally, the message that pushed me over the edge. Kelsey, after everything we've done for you, you wouldn't even have a job if it wasn't for Dad's connections. The least you can do is pay your part. My part. I stared at that phrase, letting it really sit with me. Because for the first time in a long time, I realized I had no idea what my part even was anymore. Apparently, it was everything. Every payment, every favor, every silent sacrifice wrapped in a tidy little bundle and handed off like a receipt they were tired of carrying. I was never thanked, never acknowledged, not even seen. And now, I was finally done. I logged back into the landlord portal, reviewed the formal lease transfer I'd initiated the night before, and finalized the cancellation of automatic payments. The eviction notice had already gone out, but I added a final note, citing non-payment and vacating of responsibility. It was over. That night, I blocked them all. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I didn't post a dramatic rant online or tell the world how unfair they'd been. I just stepped out of the chaos and closed the door behind me. But things weren't quiet for long. 3 days later, I ran into my cousin Leah at a coffee shop. She hugged me tight, tighter than expected, and whispered, I don't know what's going on, but Kelsey is telling everyone you've lost your mind. I laughed. For real, this time. Because of course she was. Apparently, the family group chat, which I was no longer in, had lit up like fireworks the moment the eviction notice landed. Kelsey spun it into a story about how I'd cut off the family for attention. She said I was mentally unstable, accused me of stealing money, and told everyone I'd hacked their accounts. My uncle called to ask if I was okay. My aunt sent me a thinking of you card. A few cousins quietly reached out, confused and concerned. I told them the truth. No embellishment. No drama. Just the facts. I paid for everything. They took it for granted. They pushed me out. And I let them. Now, I was done. That would have been the end of it. A clean break, if not for what happened next. Late one night, 2 weeks after the fallout, there was a knock at my door. I didn't answer at first, but the knocking kept coming. Slow, rhythmic, relentless. Finally, I opened it. It was my dad. He looked older than I remembered. Not because of age, but because of pride. Or rather, the absence of it. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed, jaw clenched, like he'd been preparing a speech the whole way over. You made your point, he said. I leaned against the frame. Did I? He hesitated. Look, we've all been under stress. Your sister's trying to get her business off the ground. Your mother's health hasn't been great. And don't, I cut in. Don't make this about them again. I'm not here to carry everyone anymore. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he only ever saw me as the buffer, the background character, the support beam holding up a house that had no foundation. You think you're the victim? He snapped. You walked out and left us to deal with everything. No, I said quietly. I stopped letting you not deal with everything. His eyes narrowed. So what now? You just walk away from your family. I didn't walk away, I said. You kicked me out. Silence. The kind that settles in your chest and makes you realize no amount of words will fix what's already broken. Finally, he shook his head and left. That was the last time I saw him. But the real twist came the following month, when Kelsey tried to file a complaint with the landlord, claiming I'd illegally evicted them. She didn't know the full story. Or maybe she never bothered to ask. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't just the primary leaseholder. I was also the sole tenant. And the house? It wasn't just rented under my name. It was bought. 3 years ago, when the market dipped and my work bonuses piled up, I saw an opportunity. My parents were struggling, and the house was listed at a fraction of its value. So I stepped in, made an offer, signed a deed. They didn't know. They never asked. The old landlord let me take over directly, and the title stayed in my name ever since. I didn't tell them because I thought it would hurt their pride. I wanted to help quietly, thought it would bring us closer. Instead, it turned me into their servant. And now? Now they were squatting in my house. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even planning to throw them out. Not yet. Because what came next was going to be the part they never forgot. I didn't rush it. That's the part people never understand. Revenge, real revenge, the kind that hits somewhere deeper than anger, isn't about speed. It's about precision, about timing, about silence. I gave them a full week. 7 full days of panicked calls to the landlord. Of Kelsey storming into city offices pretending to be a tenant wrongfully removed. Of my mom posting vague quotes on Facebook like, "Sometimes the ones you love the most hurt you the worst." All while I waited, patiently. The eviction process had already been triggered the moment I sent that document. But formal proceedings in our county take time, and the house was still technically occupied. I didn't want to go scorched earth, not yet. I wanted them to see the walls close in. Slowly, on the 8th day, I went back. Not to confront them, not to argue, just to drop off one envelope. I wore a hoodie, sunglasses, kept my car idling. I walked up to the porch where I used to shovel snow as a kid, where my dad used to sit with a beer and wave to neighbors. I taped the envelope to the door and left without knocking. Inside the envelope was one page. A legal notice. Not from a lawyer, but from me, the sole property owner, revoking their right to stay on the premises. I attached a highlighted copy of the deed. I kept it clean. No insults. No jabs. Just facts. By the time I got home, the group chat, which I'd muted but still occasionally checked, was on fire. "Kelsey, this is a joke, right? You bought the house. Mom, how could you not tell us? Dad, if this is real, you better fix it before I do something I regret." Then Kelsey again. "You think this is going to make you look good? You look like a psychopath." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That weekend, I got a text from our old neighbor, Mr. Harland. Sweet guy, used to bring us figs from his backyard. "Heard your folks are getting booted. About time, honestly. Hope you're okay, kid." That hit harder than I expected. It wasn't that I wanted them homeless. I didn't. Despite everything, I wasn't trying to ruin them. I just needed them to understand. To finally feel even a fraction of the weight I'd carried for years. But something about hearing it from someone else, someone who'd seen it all from the outside, made it real. And things were starting to snowball. Kelsey, who'd always had a flair for dramatics, tried to rally sympathy from extended family. Suddenly, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were posting things like, "Family should never turn on family," and "No amount of money justifies cruelty." Except, no one was asking me why it happened. They were just reacting, performing, like Kelsey had taught them to. But then something strange happened. People started messaging me, quietly, in DMs, in emails, even LinkedIn. "Aunt Marcy, I had no idea you were the one paying for everything. I'm so sorry. My cousin Jenna. Honestly, you should have cut them off way sooner." We all knew Kelsey was mooching. Even my old high school friend Matt, who used to come over for study sessions, wrote, "Your dad always gave me weird vibes. He once told me you'd never make it through college. Guess you proved him wrong." And I did. I made it through college. I paid their bills. I worked weekends. I sacrificed vacations. I co-signed loans I didn't benefit from. I drove my sister to job interviews when she didn't feel like taking the bus. I covered late fees, medical bills, pet food, gas, every little thing. And in return, they gave me a note. A folded piece of paper telling me I should move out of my own childhood home. I wasn't looking for applause, but I also wasn't looking to stay silent anymore. So, I made a choice. The next morning, I posted a single message to the group chat. Just text. No emotion. No drama. Deed attached. I bought the house in 2021. You've all been living here rent-free ever since. The utilities, groceries, and card you've been using were all tied to my bank. I said nothing. I let it go. You repaid me with a sneer and an eviction note. Now the roles are reversed. You have 14 days. Then I attached the scanned deed and logged off. I expected more rage, more backlash, maybe even a surprise visit. What I got instead was silence. Not complete silence. Kelsey kept trying to bait me through text, but that cold, eerie kind of silence that comes when someone realizes they have no power left. When they know the bluff has been called, and the hand they're holding is nothing but air. A few days later, I drove by the house. There were boxes on the porch, a truck in the driveway, my father sitting on the steps, staring at his hands like they held all the answers he'd never asked for. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just watched, for a moment, from a distance. And then I drove on. But the story wasn't over yet. Because while they were packing up, I was preparing something else. Something they never expected. Something final. I didn't want revenge for the sake of cruelty. That's not who I am. But I needed closure. Not just for me, for everything I'd given, everything I'd let slide, everything I was finally ready to walk away from. The house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol, a monument to years of silence, swallowed resentment, and invisible labor. And now it was mine, truly and legally. But I didn't want to live in it. I didn't want to renovate it. I didn't even want to rent it out. I wanted to be done with it. So I listed it. That final step felt surreal. Uploading the photos, writing the description. I debated whether to mention the fireplace I'd once decorated for Christmas or the back patio I'd helped my dad build as a teenager. In the end, I kept it simple, clean, detached. Within days, offers started pouring in. It was a seller's market, and the location made the house desirable, even with its outdated kitchen and peeling porch paint. I accepted a full-price cash offer from a young couple, two teachers expecting their first child, looking for a place to start fresh. That meant a quick close. No delays. No extra inspections. No fuss. I signed the papers at a local notary. The check cleared 72 hours later. That was the last thread tying me to them. And they didn't even know it had sold until I sent one final envelope. Inside, a copy of the closing documents. A simple cover letter that read, "You are no longer being evicted. The new owners have requested that you vacate the premises immediately. Any remaining items left on the property after this Friday will be considered abandoned and disposed of." This is not a negotiation. I didn't include a return address. I didn't need to. The day they were set to leave, I showed up early, not to gloat or watch, but to do one last walkthrough for the new owners. The place was a mess. Trash bags everywhere. Furniture half disassembled and left behind. A few empty frames still clinging to the walls like ghosts. In what used to be my room, someone, probably Kelsey, had scrawled on the wall in red marker, "You'll regret this." I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened the window, let the cold air in, and whispered, "I already don't." I met the new owners in the driveway, handed over the keys, and wished them well. They were smiling, grateful, excited. I watched as they walked inside, arm in arm, ready to make their memories. As I drove away, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not once. A few weeks later, I got a message I wasn't expecting. It was from my mom. Not a call. Not even a text. Just an email. "Aiden, I know we've made mistakes. I know I've made mistakes. I should have said thank you more. I should have defended you when you were being belittled. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was just keeping you small. We're staying with your aunt right now. It's tight. Kelsey won't talk to me. Your father barely says a word. I don't know if this family can be fixed, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then again, and then I closed it without replying. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate the effort. I did. It just came too late. Years too late. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt free. With the house sold, the accounts cleaned up, and my silence finally broken, I began building something new. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. I moved into a new apartment across town, nothing flashy, but mine. Paid for with the sale of the house and the savings I'd been too busy spending on other people. I got a cat. Learned to cook something besides ramen and eggs. Started therapy. Picked up a hobby or two. Joined a local trivia team. Little things. Quiet things. Things that were just for me. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't anyone's safety net. One afternoon, a few months after everything had settled, I ran into Kelsey at the grocery store. She looked tired. Her once perfect nails chipped, hair up in a messy knot. She was standing in the canned goods aisle, staring blankly at a dented can of black beans like it held some secret message from the universe. I nodded as I passed her. She looked up. Our eyes met for half a second. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. And that was enough. People always say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the full quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the family you choose, the people who show up for you, who respect your boundaries, who see you as more than what you give. They matter more than those who simply share your DNA. I used to think keeping quiet was strength. That being the good son meant tolerating everything, absorbing it, bearing it. But strength is walking away when it's destroying you. Strength is saying no. And finally, after years of being the background character in my own life, I'd said it. No more. And I've never been more at peace.